Now, this next one is one that threw me for a complete loop, especially because of some news that came out today. Um, because I also this week, so if you follow me for very long, you know that I talked about Google Willow and its quantum leap at the end of December 2024. And what was interesting was I never expected that video to perform as well as it did. It was kind of bonkers. And so I got to see all sorts of nitpicky, stuff and the critiques of all the internet trolls of the world, which was fun, I guess, a fun experience to say the least. But here's what caught my attention this week, which is why this made the top of my list. And now today, something hit that made me go, what is going on here? So I talked about Google Willow back in December. It was making headlines for the fact it had done, I don't remember how many quadrillion years worth of computations in a matter of 15 minutes, blowing the minds of even the people who worked with the chip. They went on a lunch break and came back thinking they'd have to shut the thing. And we're like, oh my gosh, it did the whole thing. It was that kind of thing. So it really was mind bending what it was able to do. And then I had even been thinking about this. And then it came up. I was watching TV with my kids earlier this week and I saw something on it. I'd been wondering, I'm like, what happened to Google Will? I have not heard much about it. So much so I was going to do some research on it and then include it in a future episode. Well, it just so happened this week, I came across something that said, like, what happened to Willow? And I dug into it and I was shocked. There's like nothing out there about this. Google Willow has been completely shut down. To the best of my knowledge, even from things I could find from Google, the program was killed. They killed the whole thing. And the whole thing was killed. There's a whole lot of detail that I dug into, and this one might feel a little bit like a episode of the X-Files. So I'll try not to get a little too zany on it, but there's some weird stuff going on. But ultimately what shut it down was an ethical hacker. So I'll explain the whole thing with this, and then you'll see why after I explain this, when I encountered what I encountered today, I went, what is going on here? So as I was watching this thing with my kids, they did a really good job of kind of breaking down what was going on with quantum chips. Because now that Google had gotten into the space more, this was technically their second quantum chip. So it wasn't their first, but this was like the orders of magnitude that I was expecting to see. Their second quantum chip was the orders of magnitude off their first that I was expecting to see from Grok 3 based on the way it was hyped up. I thought it was just going to be this quantum leap in orders of magnitude. It wasn't, but Google's chip was. And so they really started playing in the quantum sphere, but they aren't the only ones that have been messing around with quantum chips. And so I spent some time learning more about how it does what it does and the qubits, and it's insane. Honestly, it's a mind bender when you get into it. But one of the things that this documentary I was watching talked about was, and you can find this stuff, you probably need an AI deep research tool to help you find it, because there's not much out there on it, and probably for a good reason. But there were some weird things happening with these Google chips. There were weird noises in the data that at first presented themselves as noise, but suddenly these noises started to take shape in consistent patterns. And it wasn't just Google who was running into this. It was anybody who was doing anything with quantum chips was running into this, where the noise in the data patterns were starting to make consistent shapes. They're called glyphs. And linguists got involved in this because linguists were going, wait a minute, we've seen these glyphs before. These are ancient Mesopotamian, like we've seen these. They existed thousands of years ago in some of these ancient civilizations. Where did you get these? Strange stuff happening with this. And not just, oh, that's just one crackpot conspiracy. No, legitimately, they were pulling in experts. Panelists were coming in talking about, what are we discovering with these Google chips? What is it decoding that we did not even realize was there? Which for me, I'm kind of chuckling as I'm watching all this, because I don't shy away from my worldview and anything like that. And so for me, I'm like, yeah, of course. I mean, everything we know was created by an intelligent designer. Am I surprised that our latest and advanced technology would just start to recognize the patterns that already existed? Now, what's mind bending is how on earth did ancient civilizations thousands and thousands of years ago who didn't have quantum chips tap into that? Now, that's a conspiracy theory that I won't get into on this podcast. Maybe I'll talk about it with Blurry Creatures or something like that. But my point is that um, there's some really weird happenings. And this was so much so that people started talking like, have we actually unlocked quantum consciousness? And strange, like I said, it's like a Black Mirror, X-Files type thing was starting to go off. So that was already creating all sorts of, what have we touched? Should we be going down this path? Is this something that, have we gone too far? I mean, it was so already it was churning that perhaps the quantum chip was something that maybe we need to back off of because we might be opening Pandora's box and we're not prepared for that. Then comes along an ethical hacker who steps into the ring and says, you need to shut this down. You need to shut this down. This is going to unleash, I mean, it is going to unlock Pandora's box, and you will not be able to close the lid once it's opened. And essentially, what he described that led Google to shut down this project was, whether it's tied specifically to these glyphs or not is not the point. The point is, because of how quantum computing works and the level of complexity and what it's tapping into to be able to do what it needs to do, it's reaching a level where, if you think about traditional coding, it's regular compute, 0 1s, there's bits, it's either on or off, and you're mixing and matching ones and zeros into a complex pattern to be able to do something. And so if something glitches or there's a vulnerability, you can adjust it, you can change the code and close the vulnerability, because there's only two options. There's 1 and 0, and it's in a pattern. And so if there's a hole in the code, you just isolate that hole, close the hole. What he revealed to Google was, the problem with quantum computing and qubits is, because everything is in an infinite state of things, where there's a hole, which he identified there were. He's like, there are literal vulnerabilities in this, or ways you can, penetrate this. You can't close it, because in the quantum sphere, it's literally built into the fabric of the architecture. You can't close it. It's not like a building where you go, oh, we have a hole in the wall, just seal the hole. It's like, no, the hole is inherent to the whole design. You actually can't close. It's just a hole. It will stay there forever. And so the problem is that anybody who finds that hole can then exploit it and do whatever to the whole system. Now, if this is getting too technical for you, I'm trying to make this as simple as possible so that you understand, like, oh, so basically this infinite compute power could be exploited by a bad actor, and there would be literally no way to stop it. None whatsoever. That was this ethical hacker's case. Was, once this gets out, once it's, mainstream and people figure out how to hack it, you cannot prevent them from hacking it. And they will be able to do whatever they want once they do, because once they get in, it's like, I'm trying not to be too technical, but if you can get in and get system admin, you can do whatever you want. And so essentially what his point was, is there will be holes in the architecture of this whole way of doing compute that would allow people to get access to system admin. And there will be nothing you can do about it. You can't stop them. You can't protect them. You can't say, well, once they do, we'll block. They literally would have access to the whole thing. Now, you can imagine why that would make a technology company go, whoa, like, whoa, we got to back this truck up, because if we move forward with this, and then things start being built on it and it's powering and into all of our technology grids, you're literally saying anybody who figures it out could get in and do whatever they want, and there would literally be no way of it'd be like Neo in the Matrix. You can't stop him once he's in because he is the Matrix and can take control of it and do whatever he wants with it. So you can see why Google would shut it down and go, all right, until we figure this out. They shut the program down. There was this big move, a very quiet, subtle move to say, how do we figure out how to contain this? Similar to nuclear weapons, it's kind of a how do we contain quantum computing as a whole? Because that needs to be highly regulated. Now, you can disagree or agree with that, but you can imagine why once this got identified, it just quietly was like, shut the whole thing down. We need to figure out how to rein all this back in. We need to do all this other stuff because this. So you got two major, just strange happenings with Willow. And then the fact it just evaporated off the face of the earth, the program just gone. And so I'm like, wow, okay, that's interesting. So then right before I come to record this, I happen to jump on LinkedIn, and wouldn't you know it, today Microsoft launches Majorana, I don't know, whatever. They launched their quantum chip, and I'm going, what? Did Microsoft like not get the memo? Do they not know? Was this so secretive that what happened with Google and shutting down their quantum program? Did nobody ever go to Microsoft and go, or did Microsoft not tell anybody they were working on a quantum chip? I just truly like had to sit back in my chair and go, okay, how is this now coming out? So I'm still digging into Microsoft's chip, but similar. I mean, it's their latest quantum chip. It's making headlines all over. Microsoft's now in the quantum space, all this stuff. And it does make me in some ways go, did the ethical hacker catch it too late? Like, have enough people already gotten into the quantum space that like Pandora's box is now open? It's just a matter of time. I don't know, to be honest with you. And I'm going to be keeping a close eye on Microsoft's because now I'm so curious. I am so curious as to what the heck is going on. What is Microsoft doing? Will Microsoft follow the same path? Will Majorana suddenly just not be in the news anymore? Type of a thing. I don't know. This one's still so new, but it was so ironic that this week here, I was curious about Google, came across what happened with Google. And you can go see, if you want to see more details on the Google Willow thing, you can either, I think there's only one thing that I've seen that breaks down the whole thing. You can find the Google Willow ethical hacker, the hacker himself describing in more detail. If you want to get into all the technical ins and outs of all of it, you can do that. But you'll see it's a bit mind-bending. So anyway, that's another one of these, like, what is going on and what does this all, but it was fascinating. If you want to go down the rabbit trail, I would highly recommend looking into some of this stuff that quantum is unlocking here and why they're now backing it up. I guess in some ways it gives me hope that if we come across something that scares us enough, we will slow it down, which tells me that what we're doing with LLMs, despite all the hype around what it's going to do and how capable it is and all this stuff, it clearly isn't that dangerous that we're willing to, just keep pushing it forward. Because clearly there's still things that we go, nope, not doing it. Although maybe Microsoft's like, yeah, screw you, I'm doing it anyway. I don't know. So more to come on that. I will be watching the Quantum Sphere and keep you updated there. But that is the latest update on what, where one quantum is going dark and another one is rising from the ashes, I guess.